Bill Glen used to be a great governor of the great state of Illinois. You know what was so important for me to be here? Bill understands the genius of Illinois. The genius of America lies in our people, not our elected officials. And let me tell you, this election is about a clear choice. On our side, we've got a candidate that understands you've got to cut spending, cut taxes, create jobs in the private sector. On the other side, you've got a candidate that believes government, bigger government, is the answer to all of our problems. Let me share with you a story that shows you why we don't need bigger, more expensive government. Many of you know my state's been through some challenges recently. Been through 4 hurricanes and an oil spill. People always ask me, is Louisiana going to be okay? I'm here to tell you, not only are we going to be okay, we're going to be better than we were before the spill and before the hurricane. What gives me the confidence to tell you that is not our government in Baton Rouge or our government in D.C., it is our people. We have the best, most generous, most resilient people in America that you'll find anywhere in the entire world. Let me tell you, after that oil spill threatened our way of life, it sat on our coast for days and weeks. Our people began to get frustrated. Nothing was being done to prevent that oil from eating away our weapons. Now, we may not be the smartest people in the world. I don't have a Nobel Prize. We don't all have PhDs. What we do have is we've got practical common sense. We were sitting around. One of my people said, Governor, why don't we vacuum that oil before it eats away our weapons? He said, that's a great idea. Went to the federal government and said, why don't we vacuum up that oil? They said, Governor, they looked at me like I was crazy. They said, there are no roads down in Paso Lutra, south past the mouth of the river. How are we going to get a vacuum truck down the mouth of the river? I said, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. Why don't you put a truck on the back of a boat and go get that oil? I hate this answer from government. They said, we can't do that. We've never done that before. I said, they've never spilled this much oil off our coast before. Why not try something new? They said, no, we don't want to do that. I told the National Guard I ordered them to build 2 prototypes. First one was the funniest looking thing you've ever seen. It was literally a truck on the back of a pontoon bridge. Here's the thing. It worked. Pick up thousands of gallons a day. A reporter covering it said, Governor, aren't those the same trucks you used to clean the porta potties after football games? I said, please don't put that in the newspaper. That sounds awful. Don't call them porta potties, call them vacuum barges. That sounds better than porta potties. It was the same kind of technology. And the private sector, within a week, had dozens of barges, industrial pumps picking up thousands of gallons of oil, and then we got the phone call. The federal government called us up and said, we've ordered all your barges to shut down and come back to the port. I said, why? This is one of the first things that's worked. They said, we haven't done our inspections yet. I said, what do you need to inspect? They said, we need to check the valves to make sure you're using the right valves to make sure you don't drop some oil back in the water. I said, we're picking up thousands of gallons of oil and you're worried about drops? I said, Governor, those are the rules. I said, we'll give you 24 hours. We've got to get this done. Hours later, they admitted they couldn't find phone numbers for the post, even though they had ordered every one. Hours after that, they finally realized how absurd this was, but they said they have to stay in port. We're not going to check the valves anymore, but they said now we want to count the number of life jackets and fire extinguishers in everybody. I said, why can't you do this in the bays while they're picking up the oil? They said, those are the rules. 24 hours later, I headed to the ports myself. Miraculously, along the way, they called me up and said, good news, we don't have to do the inspections after all, but in the meantime, that oil sat there for 24 hours longer than it had to, eating away our coast. The reason I tell you this story, time and time again, the federal government, the bureaucrats told us there's no boom, no skimmers, we can't do anything. Time and time again, everyday people fighting to protect their way of life said, let's use jacket barges, let's use vacuum barges, let's use rocks, let's use sandbergs, let's do what it takes to fight this oil 15, 20 miles from our coast. The reason I tell you that, this election comes down to one group that believes the answer is more power, more spending, more borrowing by the government, or you've got candidates like Bill Brady that understand the genius of Illinois, the genius of America is our people. And let's understand what this election is about. Every generation of Americans has given more opportunities to their children than we've inherited from our parents. Every single generation. We don't want to become the first generation with these fewer opportunities. And yet that's exactly what's at stake. We know that American dream is what is at stake. Because if our children play by the rules, work hard, get a great education, they should have more opportunities than we did. That's the American dream. Yet we're in the middle of the greatest recession, and the federal government's answer is to borrow more money. They're up to almost $14 trillion. The administration wants to double that to almost $26 trillion. That's already $45,000 for everybody in this room. They're spending our children's and grandchildren's money. We know that can't keep going. We know the Chinese won't keep buying our debt. We know interest rates will go up, the value of the dollar is going to go down. We understand you can't keep spending more than you take in. That's why we need to elect Bill Brady. He understands the importance of cutting spending, cutting waste, and cutting taxes. Now the skeptics will tell you that you can't do it. The skeptics will tell you you've got a government study, you've got to raise taxes. I'm here to tell you you don't have to do that. In Louisiana, I promise my people a new Louisiana. For 20 years, we've exported our greatest asset. No, it's not Mardi Gras, and it's not even our oil and gas. For 20 years, we've been exporting our sons and daughters. We are the only state in the South to send more people out of our state more quickly than they moved in. I promised our people a new Louisiana. I told them we wage war and corruption and incompetence. Portfolio.com says we've had the second best economic performance during the recession. Gallup says we're the third best at creating jobs. And most importantly, the Census Bureau says after 20 years of losing our people, for 3 years in a row, more people are moving into Louisiana more quickly than they're leaving. We did it by adopting conservative principles in Louisiana. Two examples of what we've done, because I know that's exactly what Bill Brady's going to do here in Illinois. The first, we had a special session on ethics my first month in office. Now, why is that so important? Well, let's be honest. Louisiana and Illinois, we've had a little friendly competition going throughout the years. I'm not talking about football, I'm not talking about basketball or even baseball. I'm talking about we've been competing to see who could have the most corrupt politicians in the entire country. What we say in Louisiana, we say at any given moment in time, half our people are underwater, the other half are under indictment, any given moment in time. But we said we got to put an end to that. The reality was, our university did a study. This is one of the top 2 things we can do to attract jobs is crack down on corruption. When people think who you know is more important than what you know, they don't invest in your state. We had a special session on ethics. I won't go through all the rules. I'll tell you this. We were at the bottom 5 on the Integrity Index for the Better Government Association. Now we're in the top 5. We were 44th worst, according to the Center for Public Integrity for Legislative Disclosure. Now Louisiana ranks #1 in the country. Second and final thing I'll tell you about, we cut taxes. Got rid of taxes on debt, new equipment, utilities, enacted the largest income tax cut in our state's entire history. We've cut spending 14%, cut over 6,000 government jobs, sold over 1,000 state cars. The other side will tell you it can't be done. Every governor's got to make a fundamental choice during this recession. Do you make the tough choices in state government, or do you shift that burden to your families and businesses? Bill Brady understands he will make the tough choices so he can create better paying private sector jobs right here in Illinois so our children and grandchildren can pursue their dreams. Bottom line, Louisiana, we created tens of thousands of jobs, billions of dollars in private capital investment. We've done it by applying conservative principles. Bill Brady will do that here. Before I bring up our next governor to speak to you, I want to echo one thing that Haley Barber said. And this is so important. Bill is ahead of the polls. The pundits, the political experts have all said he's going to win this election, and that's right. But polls and pundits don't win elections. Only